side and so forth along both sides in varying different degrees at different sections of the road. And whilst I appreciate that there is a need to stop and give way to someone opposing during many of the periods of the day, the development traffic that's being forecast isn't considered to make a significant worsening of those particular conditions.
Okay, I've got Councillor Bond, and then I think Councillor Fage wanted to come back. Councillor Bond.
Thank you very much. I listened earlier with interest about the archaeological mitigation, and the fact is that when stuff will be found, it will be recorded. I understand that Hallam actually have actually undertaken a archaeological survey of the site. I imagine it's probably done by Albion, because that's the normal company which is normally used for this purpose. And I'll be interested to find out a bit more about that in a second. But what I must make very clear is this site and site of Biggleswade Common is steeped with archaeological finds and history. English Heritage's own estimation, looking at of several commons, basically put Biggleswade Common in the top 8 in the country, including York and Lincoln, because there's a lot of stuff in the area. When the recent developments in Potton Road and others, more archaeological survey stuff has been found. CBC's own historical environmental records, HERS, basically just list a whole lot of things in the area, including as far as the sewage works, and even the fact is the Roman Road runs through this Hallam site, HAS 06. Now, the question I ask really about this is, as you mentioned, the fact is you've done archaeological surveys. I'm aware of these surveys, but I've looked at the reports on the reports on the website regarding the application, and you refer to documents, you refer to the survey, but you actually haven't got documents there. And I understand what the CBC archaeologist also has complained, the fact is this document hasn't been made public. I wonder if you'll commit yourselves to actually give us a copy and make that document public of the archaeological surveys you've actually done on this site.
Thank you, Mark. Can I bring you in on that one, please?
Certainly. Yeah, Councillor Bond, I'm sorry if you've not actually seen it on the website. We have supplied the findings of an intrusive archaeological study to Central Bedfordshire. That went to the council some months ago now, actually. So that should be available on the council's portal for you to look at. But just so that you are aware, that has actually now satisfied the council's archaeologist. And we have agreed the principle of a condition to be applied to planning permission, should it be forthcoming in due course, that will control the archaeological investigation work as development proceeds. And as I think the development brief acknowledges, you know, if there's something that needs to be protected in situ, that will be protected in situ. But there has been quite a bit of further work submitted to the council. And like I say, I'm surprised it's not on the website or the portal. If you can't find it there, please let us know and we'll let you have a copy direct.
I actually can't find it on the website, and I've looked. The last documents that actually are on there have the only last documents are on there are from January, and the more recent one is the Biggleswade Town Council's own traffic assessment. Now, obviously, I'm not going to wait. I prefer not to wait. If you can actually forward them to the acting clerk, it'd be most appreciated. Including, as you said, you've done some more recent work. It would be interesting to have a look at that.
I will forward the findings of the intrusive study to you, and I will check with the case officer to find out why they're not on the website, because they should be. Thank
you. Can I ask just a smaller question? Councillor Ramsey was asking earlier about sustainability and even electric car charging points and such of that nature, which I note your reply. Bear in mind that we're coming to, in 2025, I understand the government's made it very clear that gas will not be a suitable energy to be used for heating houses. You'll still be allowed to cook with gas. I'd be very interested to know actually what Hallam's plan is regarding these houses, of how they're going to be heated, and are they also going to look into possibility of geothermal as an alternative, because clearly there's not the electric supply available now. And from documents I've seen that you've submitted, it looks like you are expecting to rely on a gas supply? I hope I haven't misunderstood that.
We have submitted an energy statement with the planning application, and that looks at the various alternatives to meet the emerging, the current local plan, the emerging local plan policies, and indeed changes in statute and so forth. But I think what you need to be aware is that Hallam are not actually a house builder. Hallam will be securing the planning permission, and the site will then be passed to a house builder for to actually develop out the housing, and it will be that house builder's responsibility to actually meet the necessary standards and to have proper regard to how it will provide energy to those new dwellings in a more sustainable fashion. There are lots and lots of ways of developing technologies for doing that, air source, ground source, etc., etc. But we're not at that level of detailed planning to be able to say it will be one or the other. And like I say, that will be a matter for a house builder in due course when they do actually build the houses to make those decisions.
But you made a commitment to sustainability, and you were saying about electric charging points. You must be able to make some commitment to something as important as sustainable energy supplies, which is obviously what the government's trying to achieve. Obviously, there's a deadline of 2025.
Yeah.
Is this being? I mean, you've got. The whole point is you have development briefs, you've got outline planning applications as opposed to full applications. They're meant to be able to have some understanding here, so that. Okay, so you're saying you're not a house builder, but if you need to be able to have at least address these in your within the development brief and the outline planning application.
Well, we like I said, the outline planning application is accompanied by an energy statement which looks at the various options that are available, but the actual determination and decisions that are taken on how buildings are constructed are controlled by the building regulations, which is a separate legislative system, separate from planning. Planning can't dictate how it will develop in terms of actual construction materials and construction methodologies and things like heating systems and how that will go forward. That is not a role of the planning system. That sort of level of those matters are controlled by the building regulations system, and so that's the context, the legislative regulatory context within which decisions will be taken about things like insulation standards, different methodologies for heating, levels of water provision, etc., etc. All these sort of more these more specific indicators of sustainable development.
Okay.
Sorry, you were saying about you can't be committed to these, but I actually look at some of the other documents on the website which have been posted by CBC, and there's the Sustainable Growth Officer, and she makes it very clear about the fact is there has to be acceptance of a minimum of 10% improvement over building regulations for water, and so they are really saying that we can actually go as far as looking at sustainability.
Well, these are things that will be imposed on the planning commission by condition, and these are the things that will then have to be taken forward in terms of the next levels of design through the reserved matters process by the house builder in due course, and then the house builder will actually also have to then demonstrate to the to Central Bedfordshire that it's the development it's proposing meets building regulation standards, which is even more detail in terms of sustainable development standards and so forth. So it's a little like almost a continuum, but there's a point at which planning stops and building regulations starts. And what I'm trying to say really is that at the planning stage, there are any number of options that can be pursued by a house builder. We're not going to dictate to a house builder what they should do, just for the simple fact that in 2 or 3 years' time, things could change quite dramatically. I mean, we've already sort of, a good example is we talked about electric power, battery charging for vehicles a few minutes back. There is an emerging policy in the local plan about a proportion of the houses being capable of providing for electric vehicle charging. But what we also know is that there is a pending change coming forward in the building regulations, which will require every new dwelling to have that provision within it. So it doesn't really matter what planning policy says at this juncture. We do know that within a couple of years' time, the building regulations will be in place, and absolutely every dwelling will have to provide that passive electric charging provision. So that's just an example of how things are changing. I was trying to.
Mark, I think Ian,
Okay.
Mark, you've made your point. Can we move on to another issue now, please?
Thank you very much.
I've got Councillor Pullinger wants to come in.
Thank you. So I've got a couple of questions. First, I'd like to just go back to something on the rights of way, and in particular the right of way up Furzenhall Road, and in particular where that narrows into single carriageway currently. That's quite a safe bridleway for pedestrians, cyclists and horse riders, because there's very little traffic. In your proposal, that will now be a much wider road and obviously with much more traffic. So it wouldn't be sensible for the bridleway to run down the actual road itself, and therefore it would need to be moved and diverted off the actual road carriageway itself. So can you confirm that you will formally relocate the right of way off the line of the road itself in order to maintain the safety of the users of the bridleway?
Thank you. Julian, can you answer that one? Is that Mark?
I don't think it's me.
Well, I'm the access proposals at this particular stage have gone before the rights of way officer, who came back with a number of suggestions and requests for some alteration and amendment, and those have been incorporated into latest changes to the plans and have been sent back to them. As it stands at the moment, I haven't heard anything further back from the rights of way officer, but the access arrangements include the provision of the right of way effectively to the side of the road, which is what was touched on earlier on. But we had some comments and feedback from the rights of way officer, and we've responded to them and put that back to them.
So just to confirm then, does that mean the actual right of way itself will be moved to the side of the road? It won't be on its existing line?
Well, they won't be on the existing alignment of the road, but certainly up until as far as the development is concerned. Obviously the actual housing itself access point turns left effectively off the existing alignment of Furzenhall Road, part way up before it slightly bends to the left. Thereafter that, it will continue as it does at the moment, unaffected by the scheme entirely. But there will be a transition as the bridleway comes down to a corridor to the side of the road running down towards the existing Furzenhall Road. Okay, thank you. So moving on to my other question, which is around the Lintels Crossing. So obviously, building 416 new houses in such close proximity to a level crossing across the East Coast Main Line, a 4-line railway, obviously increases the safety risk to the users of that crossing. It's certainly for the people who are at that end of the proposed estate with a direct access to the bridleway very close to that crossing. That would become a very much desirable route for people wanting to reach the town centre. So Network Rail have already indicated that they consider that crossing is unsuitable to remain if there is a further development in this area, and that it would need to be replaced by a bridleway bridge. So can you confirm that you will not allow any properties to be occupied in line with what Network Rail wish before that bridleway bridge is replaced by level crossing?
Thank you. Mark, are you best placed to take the one about Lintels Crossing?
Yep, I'll try. I think the first thing to note is I don't know whether town councillors are aware, but there is a report going to the Central Bedfordshire Cabinet very shortly, in which the council is in effect being asked to accept the HIF funding offer. It's a complex set of circumstances with a number of parties involved, but as I understand it, Network Rail, the Ministry, Central Bedfordshire Council will be entering into an agreement to implement the Bridleway Bridge crossing, and there's quite a level of detail in the committee report and in the papers that accompany it. That includes a project plan which shows that the Bridleway Bridge could well be in place sometime early in 2023. I think I'm right. I haven't got the papers in front of me right now, but I think it's either early 2023 or late 2023, depending on the route that the process has to go through, i.e. whether or not there has to be compulsory purchase of land, etc. So the prospect is that there will very soon be a brand new crossing over the railway line. And I fully, if they keep to that particular project, I suspect that Bridleway Bridge will be in place before there is any housing actually of any significance on the site. So I think that's the first point I'd want to make. I think the second point I would want to make is that I don't necessarily accept that is an attractive way to the town centre, and in fact I think it's quite an unattractive route to the town centre, frankly. Most of the facilities that we think people from this development area would want to access, you would take a route down Thurston Hall Road onto Potton Road and then through into Biggleswade. You know, the schools are in that direction, the leisure facilities are in that direction, the retail is in that direction, the railway station is in that direction. So we're not reliant on the crossing being there. We don't think we will have a measurable impact, discernible impact in terms of an increase of use of that particular crossing. So I think it's unlikely that we will be put in a position where we are expected to prevent occupation until the bridge is in place.
So just to come back on that piece where you say you don't consider that it will be an increased use of that crossing. So the other point is, of course, that will be the shortest route for people living on the estate to access the Biggleswade Common, which is accessible just the other side of that level crossing. So, and it will be the shortest route to the common for those people. So, and people who are wanting to use that land and use that great facility in Biggleswade of Biggleswade Common will want to use that route.
Yeah, I think the words I use, I don't think there'll be a discernible increase in usage from our development of the crossing. Undoubtedly, some people will. But it's not going to be a case that there's suddenly going to be a lot more people using that crossing to get to the common. I mean, as we know, the crossing is heavily promoted already as part of the Green Wheel, and that's there, you know, promoted to the entire Biggleswade community and in fact beyond. So, you know, the level of increase that might arise from our developments, I think, in relative terms, is not going to be discernible.
Okay. Councillor Fage, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, so I want to summarise because I appreciate we've taken up quite a lot of time here, and I'm grateful to everyone from Hallam who has taken the time to come and speak to us this evening. Biggleswade Town Council has commissioned a technical audit of your transport assessment. It's pretty damning. Can we expect a response from you? On that technical audit?
Thank you. Who's best placed in project team? Technicals. Mark? Sorry.
That's okay. You prepared a technical audit. I don't want to sound rude, but you didn't do the courtesy of sending it to us. You sent it directly to Central Bedfordshire Council. And no doubt you sent it directly to Central Bedfordshire Council because you want them as the local highway authority to look at those comments and take a view and pick up on those as you see, as you think they should see fit. We will engage with Central Bedfordshire Council as the local highway authority in relation to that work if they raise it with us. But I don't think you can expect us to respond directly to you on the content of that technical audit.
Well, I won't pretend I'm surprised because it is incredibly damning of your transport assessment. And I think something that was alluded to, particularly by Councillor Bond and Councillor Ramsey in relation to energy and your obvious dependence on the 1,500 houses going ahead to the east of Biggleswade, is in stark contrast to some of the things which you're saying in the transport assessment, where you assume they won't go ahead until 2035. So you contradict yourself a lot on that.
Sorry, can I just quickly come in, because that's factually incorrect as far as reliance on Biggleswade East is concerned. I think the simple position as far as Biggleswade East is concerned is that it has a significantly greater impact on the highway network than land Biggleswade North. And so given the fact that that planning permission still has a series of Grampian type planning conditions that are yet to be satisfied. So the mitigation that that scheme delivers is at this stage unknown. And so because it was unknown, we were left in a place where we needed to demonstrate what our level of impact was relative to what we perceived and understood their level of impact to be. And given that it's unclear as to whether they would be able to satisfy those Grampian conditions completely, we undertook an exercise to present 4 different scenarios of modelling to Central Bedfordshire Council, so that they would have a full and clear and transparent analysis of what Biggleswade East impact would be, what our impact would be, and what the combined impact of both would be, simply so that if we got to a stage where Biggleswade East development hadn't come forward by a certain point in time, we would be in a position to agree a level of either financial contribution or highway works that could be implemented to mitigate the impact of Biggleswade North. So there is in no way at all any reliance on Biggleswade East. Unfortunately, the critique of by your own consultants is the bigger error in that regard. I think that's quite misleading in the way that they've presented their work. I think there are a number of points within their work that leave a little bit to be desired, if I'm honest, insofar as I've scrutinised some of their own work elsewhere, and they adopt a similar approach that we've appointed here, yet they criticise our work in that regard. So there's inconsistencies. I didn't expect them to turn around to you and say, yes, it's absolutely perfect. So it's a critique. But then in response to certain of the comments that were made earlier, the work that we've undertaken is not related and not based upon out-of-date information. It follows an acceptable methodology that that Central Bedfordshire agreed, and is not inconsistent with the work that was applied for by Biggleswade East and the approach that they took. So, there isn't a reliance. I think that's unfortunately it's a mistake, and it's misleading. And so, we, as Marcus said, we have provided our thoughts on their analysis in a report that's gone back to Central Bedfordshire Council. They have said already to us that they will clearly look at our work, they will read that review, but they will form their own opinions on it. And that's exactly what I'd expect them to do.
Well, I look forward to hearing what their opinions are. It's not true that you include the combined scenario for all of your analysis. Several of the mitigating actions don't even touch on any sort of land east scenario included as well. And obviously you use them selectively to paint a false picture of what the impact on the road network would be in Biggleswade. The fact that you're modelling and uses the same assumption for Potton Road as it does for Furzenhall Road, I think probably says everything that anyone needs to know about the quality of the document which you submitted. But like you say, we'll liaise with Central Beds, and so will you. So we'll discuss that via them.
Okay, I think we have had rather a long time on this, but I very much appreciate Hallam and your consultants coming along to this meeting and answering the questions in the way that you have. Thank you very much again. And we'll now move on to the next agenda item, if that's all right.
Thank you.
Right, I will when I've got my agenda in front of me. Right, I'm on to members' questions. Do any members have any questions, please? No? Okay, I'm moving on. We've got the minutes of the annual statutory meeting on the 26th of May. So I'm going to go through them for accuracy to start with. Anything on page 1, please? Page 2? Page 3? Councillor Foster? If you could unmute.
My apologies. Yeah, page 2, on the item 5, number 2, it's Councillor K. Brown, not Councillor I. Brown.
Thank you. We'll put that one right. Anything else on page 2? Page 3? Page 4? Page 5? Page 6? Councillor Foster again, please. Councillor Foster, were you indicating? Councillor Foster?
Sorry. It's item B, number 3. Also, the year was wrong. I just make that point that, yes, I did raise the question of the date, but it was actually shown as 2019.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. So anything on page 6, please? Page 7? Page 8? Page 9? Page 10? So are councillors happy if I sign those as a correct record with those 2 alterations?
Move it.
Thank you. Okay. I'm now on matters arising for the same set of minutes. Anything from page 1? Page 2? Page 3? Page 4? Page 5? Page 6? Page 7? Page 8? Page 9? Page 10? Okay, so no matters arising. I'm now moving on to the planning applications in front of us tonight. And the first one is 4 London Road, listed building change of use. Any comments, please, councillors?
Move no
No
objection.
objection.
Okay, are we all happy with move no objection?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And then 21 Durham Close, single storey side extension. Councillor Fage? Leslie Fage?
Yes, I've just unmuted. Just to let you know, it does say that it doesn't have any changes to the car parking on that facility. It's on a corner plot. They're moving the extension out. If I'm reading the extension right, they're actually moving where they currently park their car. It is a 3-bed semi, and it does have a car park on the block behind. So it's just, is there adequate parking there for it? Like I say, it does say it doesn't affect the car parking, but I do know that they do park on their own property, and if they extend on that bit where they currently park, will they end up parking on the corner and on the pavement? Because there isn't enough space for that car. They will have to use the garage.
Okay, so we could make that point, but are we saying no objection but make that comment, or are we objecting on that?
just sort of no objection, but just be aware of the parking, is it? Because it's quite busy around there.
Okay. Are councillors happy with that? No objection to, but to make the point about the parking? Yes?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. On to items for consideration. We have the item about the lieutenancy and possible honours for people who have made a big contribution during COVID-19. Your comments, please, colleagues. Anybody? Is this something you'd like to think about and maybe contact the town clerk if you have any ideas? That we had a previous thing come up from the High Sheriff as well, and there may well be some people, I know Good Neighbours have done a lot of work, and there may be some people within the community who would like to see recognised. So can I leave it to colleagues to get in touch with the town clerk with any names that you know, please? And then there's a process to go through. Shall I move on? Are you happy with that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Orchard Close, Grosvenor Gardens and Hitchmead Road. Central Bed consultation on waiting restrictions. Any comments, please? Councillor Mark Foster.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate. This this matter was dealt with on the Traffic Management Committee today. So whilst it's on our agenda, the matter has been resolved and will go ahead as planned, as currently. That's the decision that's made at the meeting today. Okay,
thank you. Yes, that's one that slipped through the net, I think, just as the lockdown came in. Are there any comments we'd want to send back to Highways to consider as they implement, though? Or is everybody happy? I think I've said before that when I was involved with the school and this was discussed, there wasn't any problem with the school giving up the land that was required. Anything else? No. Okay.
That was the views that we represented.
Okay, thank you very much. We're on to the accounts then, item 11. Councillor Ramsey, do you want to say anything?
Just that I would recommend that we receive and adopt the following accounts: the detailed balance sheet, income and expenditure budget heading, NatWest payment listing, and the Lloyds Bank payment listing. And just to say that we're expecting any day now for the NatWest money to come through to Lloyds. It's supposed to have been done and it was in hand and it was all going to happen, and it hasn't. But Councillor Russell is on the case. So I fully expect that it will be done within 24 hours. But it certainly is, it's been agreed, and in theory it's on its way. That's all I can say. But if it wasn't for COVID, we might throw a little party when it actually happens. But there you are. So thank you very much.
Okay, I'd just like to add to that I have phoned the centre in Chatham in Kent for closing accounts. They sent a letter and said they wanted to talk to a signatory. So I phoned them, went all through all the questions that they asked, both about me to identify me and about the account. And I was assured that the money would be in the account within a week. It wasn't. So I phoned again. Both times at that stage, I had to hold on for half an hour. But the second time, I was assured that because they hadn't done what they should have done the first time, the money would be in our account within 48 hours. That was last Wednesday. It is not in our account yet. I tried to phone again yesterday. I held on the phone for an hour and then had to give up. So I am going to try again tomorrow, but this is terribly frustrating. And even when you get through, the people aren't doing what you ask them to do, which is not good. They've agreed that the form that we've submitted is accurate. They just wanted confirmation from somebody who was a signatory, which I've done. There should be no problem, but they haven't done it. So along with Councillor Ramsey, I rather hope that this might happen in the not too distant future, but it's not good. Anyway, to get back to the accounts, Councillor Ramsey has proposed, do I have a seconder, please? Yes, thank you. So all those in favour of receiving and adopting the accounts? Thank you very much.
Can I just ask the councillors if anybody has a spare baseball bat? Because we might have to go down to Chatham and take the baseball bat with us. Any offers there? Any help? Okay, thank you.
Sure that's what the town council wants a reputation for, Councillor Ramsey.
Well, they won't recognise us wearing our COVID masks, will they? So that will be all right.
I think I better move on to planning outcomes before we get any deeper water. I've got the report of the planning application outcomes, and I think, as we've discussed on various occasions, there still isn't a decision on that large site on Bonds Lane. And I think Councillor Bond, you said that because the 106 still isn't agreed. Is that right?
Yes, that's the case. I chased this up about 3 months ago, and I've sent a recent email trying to find out what's happening. Because normally what happens if this doesn't get resolved, it ends up going back to DMC with a different recommendation. So obviously this is 11 months since this application was passed by DMC. It's a bit ridiculous. It's almost a year before, and it's still waiting for the 106 to be signed. But when I have an update, I will pass it on to council, hopefully by next meeting.
Thank you very much. Are there any other items on the planning application outcomes report?
Just a quick question, more to Councillor Bond, actually. How long does the permission sort of last for before they have to reapply? Because, I mean, presumably the Bonds Lane development, if it's knocking on a year, that does seem rather a long time, you know, to get a resolution on it. I wondered if they have to come back or you know, present it in a different way.
Well, normally what happens, your application gets approved. This application has not been approved. And once you get the approval letter, you then normally have 3 years to put a spade in the ground.
Okay, 3 years.
They're not even there yet, so they haven't. I don't think the clock starts yet because it hasn't been approved.
Right. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Thanks.
Thank you. Can I move on to items for information? Thank you. Grants, a letter received from Citizens Advice, which is very nice. 40 Shortmead Street, notified of works to trees. Are there any comments on that? No? Okay, I'm moving on. And notification of the street naming and numbering. This is the new older people's residence. And they are just adding the name of Mantles Court, which I think we knew anyway,
Yes.
that it was going to be called Mantles Court to recognise the garage that was there previously. Market defibrillator. Could the acting town clerk please update us on where we are with that?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, yes, things have progressed. We've now identified the particular model that was taken. We don't know the circumstances under which it disappeared, but there didn't seem to be any explanation that we can actually discover. So we've got a quote for a replacement like for like. That's £999 plus VAT. We have been in contact, or the office manager particularly has been in contact with Aviva, who are the council's insurers. The advice is that this particular incident, the way it disappeared, is not covered by insurance. I mean, they use the phrase, it's not an insurable event, because it's an exclusion specifically in this insurance policy, which I have checked, that basically the disappearance is unexplained, and that is not an insurable event, unfortunately. So we are about to reorder a replacement, but what I did want to just, as a matter of courtesy, request, we are going to be writing to all of the ward councillors, because there was an indication that you might be generous enough to contribute something towards this cost. So a letter will be going out, but obviously it's for ward councillors to decide individually whether they wish to contribute. But my plan, unless anybody has any objection, is to actually now move to reordering a replacement to try and get it as quickly as possible.
Any comments on that? I think we're all happy to have the defibrillator ordered as soon as possible, aren't we? From discussions that we've had before. Yeah, okay. I think everybody's happy with that, Mr. Clark. Can I carry on with you and item E, restoring the full market, please?
Yes, I was hoping to have perhaps more positive news, but at the moment we're still working on this. The town centre manager has unfortunately had to take some emergency leave to deal with some matters relating to his family. So I'm afraid we're without him at the moment. So he has been taking a lead and talking with all of the market traders who were there before. He has been working on another layout to make sure that there's proper social distancing, and trying to move towards a date when we can reopen. What needs to be done, what is most important, are the risk assessments, and I haven't got an update from him at the moment as to where we are with that. I did this afternoon have a discussion with the works manager, because there's obviously an overlap between the work that is done on the market square and the work that's done in the town centre. The two managers need to obviously overlap in terms of their work, and it may be that with some help to move this thing forward more quickly. But I would like to give you a date. I would like to sort of say that we would try and get it done by the end of the month, but I'm just
We've lost you.
at the moment trying to.
We keep losing you, Clark. Your lines.
Yes, I know. Sorry about that. Can you hear me? Can you
I
hear me?
now, yes, yes.
I don't know how much members have actually heard.
I think the last thing we heard was that you'd like to say it would be by the end of the month.
Okay, that would be a target, but obviously I've got to try and sort of reassign some tasks, because I don't know how long Simon is likely to be absent. I'm expecting him to be back later, or at the end or beginning of next week. I know he's committed to an online meeting later this week, which he hopes to attend, but until I've got a better picture of what
We've lost the clerk again. I've got two councillors indicating.
what's going on. I wouldn't like to be
stopping video may help with the clerk's audio.
I think, shall I go on to the councillors' questions? I'm hoping that the clerk can hear us. Councillor Knight was first.
Thank you. So earlier today, the Communities Secretary confirmed that shops can choose to reopen from June the 15th, which is next Monday. In my opinion, it would be wrong and something of an anomaly if market traders were denied the opportunity to trade and earn a living when shops can choose to reopen. So I'd like to ask that this is given the highest priority. And if the clerk is able to respond, I guess I'd like to understand how many traders have indicated that they would like to return at the present time, please. And just to repeat, if Philip presses the stop video button, that may help if his internet connection's playing up.
It's on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
No,
Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Yes, I've lost my pictures altogether at the moment. Yes, we'd love to give it high priority. Now, I think two things have to be borne in mind. When the government says that shops may open, which is quite correct, it doesn't mean to say that they will or must open. And I believe every shop is also doing their own risk assessment to see whether it's safe for people to come into their premises. I know of certain types of premises where it's not really easy for people to socially distance, and I know not in this town, but in other towns there have been statements by individual traders to say that they will not be opening in the near future. So by no means is there a national, reopening, if you like, with flags flying and whistles blowing. It's going to happen gradually, and it will happen gradually with the market as well. Obviously, we would like to comply, but I don't think the 15th is a realistic target given the circumstances with our staff and what needs to be done. I need to do some more work on this. I need to get other managers within the council to help me with this. We would like to do it as quickly as possible. I know that Simon has been, as I've said, talking with market traders, and he has got some feedback on that. So the work is ongoing, and that's all I would be able to say at this moment, Madam Mayor.
Okay, Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I think the main thing that I would like to add to this is the responsibility for the market traders to their employees and to the people in general is it's their responsibility to look after their own business. The market square is a public place. It's outdoors, and the guidance is very clear that outdoors is safer than indoors. So it would seem less than logical that outdoor premises are not able to open where indoor ones are. And then the other point I'd like to add is we haven't actually closed our market. Our market is still open. Our market traders, those that have been allowed to by law, some of them have still been able to trade, and we've not placed any restrictions really on market traders that are legally allowed to trade. We've actually, it seems we're now imposing restrictions which weren't really there before. So yes, we do need to do a level of risk assessment, but really in an outdoor space, in a place where the public have access to anyway, it really shouldn't be that difficult for us to implement social distancing controls and to locate the stalls that are socially distanced spacing from each other to allow them to trade very shortly.
Councillor Ramsey.
When the bakery came back onto the market, Simon did go down there and put in a lot of spacing and the 2 metres and the access to the stall. He worked it out as if it was a shop, so they could go to the stall and be served in safety. So it's not really fair to say he's doing it in retrospect, because that did happen several weeks ago. Thank you.
Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think that possibly what should be happening is each market stall holder should be completing their own risk assessment on their own stalls, because I think they've got that duty to do that. What we as a council should be doing is making sure that the stalls are a reasonable distance apart so that the 2 metre social distancing rules can be complied with in passing through the market square. But I believe, if I'm reading some information that was passed to us earlier today, that the national guidelines would indicate that it's probably the stall holder's obligation, rather like a shopkeeper's obligation, to have a risk assessment to show that they've covered that. And we should probably be asking for each stall holder to give us details of their risk assessment to show that we've undertaken the due diligence in ensuring that the market they're there and working in the appropriate manner.
Thank you. Acting Clerk, would you like to come back on any of those comments?
Well, I think Councillor Strawn has made a very good point. I'll be honest, I hadn't thought of that directly, but I am imagining that the town centre manager would have been talking with the various stall holders to find out about that. What I would like to say that there are 2 other considerations that have to be taken into account, and that is the layout of the market, which is very important because as stalls come back, there will be queuing by people for each of those outlets. And also there is the interface, and I know Simon's been talking to the shopkeepers who border onto the market square as well, to make sure that their queuing arrangements when they open will not contradict or conflict with the stall holders. And these are important bits of work as well. Now, obviously, we can expedite that, and if that is the case, and if I have to involve the public realm people and their manager, it may mean that I will have to divert some of the resources, not all, but some of the resources from some of the work that is done within the parks and open spaces across to the sound centre. Now that can be done, and I'm quite happy to move that along, but I want members to bear in mind that with this extra work that's coming along on stream, and also that they would have to do the marking out. We can't, do everything all at once. But obviously, if that is the wish of councillors, we can make every effort to step up that particular activity at the market, and just put one or two of the other sort of activities within the public realm on hold until the market's been done. But I still don't think we're going to achieve that by this weekend.
Councillor Farrell.
Yeah, I've had correspondence with one market trader who I've been told has essentially been turned away, told that, we can't accommodate their stall at the moment. So I don't know the answer to how many overall would like to trade but can't, but the fact that there's one, I have to be honest, concerns me. Now, without getting too bogged down in some of the details of it, I mean, I work in risk, so I deal with this sort of thing occasionally. And there has to come a point where we kind of accept that there is some level of risk which exists. I know when I leave my house, there's a chance I'm going to get hit by a car, but I don't not leave my house, in the same way that someone knows when they come to a market, there's a risk that they're more likely to get COVID than if they just stay at home with the doors locked and hide under the duvet. And, individuals own risk as well. I think the point that Councillor Straw makes around some of the stall holders owning the risk associated with their stall is relevant. Yes, the queuing is important and it's something to consider. By and large, people are still adhering to the 2 metre social distancing. The people who use our market are adults. I can see from those who are waiting outside of shops which are relatively close to each other and might both be open. Individuals are grown up enough to make decisions around where they position themselves to, be ready to get into the shop because they're next in line, but also stay a safe distance away from other people. We have to take that into account with our market as well. There is no perfect solution. Yes, the regulations might be a little bit confusing. They were probably written in a rush. We are not, we are potentially over-analysing this in my view, just a little bit. We've had plenty of time to sort it out. I appreciate some of the staffing constraints and things, but as Councillor Knight says, the priority here is important. This is people's living, and we need to bear that in mind and deliver for our market traders and for our residents in that sense.
May I come back, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go on.
Well, first of all, can I just answer the first point? The complaint that Councillor Page has received was indeed something which was dealt with and decided a little while back, before the new regulations concerning opening of markets came out. The circumstances have changed, and that particular one is, as I understand it, being reviewed alongside everybody else. So that is not strictly something which is now relevant to the situation. The situation, as members have already rightly pointed out, is whether the market can open quickly or not. I've given a view that we will try and do this as quickly as possible. I take the point that it's a higher priority. I still state the fact that we will not be able to achieve that by this weekend, but I'm setting a target to try and do this as soon as possible, given that some of the other work that the council does may have to then just be sort of postponed for a week or two.
Okay, I'm going to call a halt to that there. I think we've had a good discussion about that, and I'm going to move on to the public open session. This is the second public open session, and it allows members of the public to put questions or address the council in respect of any other business of the town council, not just what has been on the agenda. So it's the same rules as before, 3 minutes per speaker, a total of 15 minutes. And could people, if they wish to speak, please show their electronic hand and we can bring you in. Okay. Sally Litchfield. I think you would. Oh, you've put your hand off again. All right. I'm not getting anybody indicating. Right. Wait a minute. The screen is moving every time I try to look at it. Simon Denchfield. Can we bring Simon Denchfield in, please?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Go
Okay.
ahead, Mr. Denchfield.
A couple of quick points. Perhaps you can recognise my concerns relative to Hallam Land and their comments. But just another point, which they did say in their description or their presentation, was that a request of Central Bedfordshire, the plans had all been marked up as illustrative. That includes all the notes on the plan as being illustrative. Now, I've had 50 years experience in the construction industry. And if we ever want to have plans that we can easily amend and alter without reference to authority, we always mark them up illustrative or for information purposes only. So I don't have any faith that actually what they're putting on the drawings, because ultimately this will be sublet to a constructor. I have no faith that what they put on the drawings, they'll actually be delivered at the end of the day. In the on those drawings.
Field does want to speak now. Can you come in, please? Go ahead.
Hi, yeah. Are the tennis courts open, or is there any provisions to open the tennis courts?
I don't know the answer to that. Does the clerk know the answer to that?
Yes, we are looking into that. I mean, there is an issue, as members will know, with the location of the tennis courts and the shared access. But I do believe that it's being looked into, and the decision will be made. But I can't tell you what that is. I didn't have notice of the question. I do apologise, but I will look into it.
If you could email in Miss Litchfield, then perhaps the office can let you know when the tennis courts are open, if that would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Does anybody else wish to speak? No, I'm not getting any indication, so I'm going to close the public open session. The council has come to the end of the open agenda. We now have some exempt items to discuss. So can I thank everybody for their contributions to this council meeting? And can I ask colleagues to reconvene in about 5 minutes' time for our exempt items, please? Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.